Hello, Mr. Beeline here. Our next lesson is going to be on types of chemical bonds. Okay, so first we're going to start off with some terminology. Compounds. That is when there's a substance made of combined atoms of two or more elements. All right, and every compound can be represented by a chemical formula. This tells us what elements are in the compound as well as how many. So right here I've got two different chemical formulas for two different compounds. One is H2O, the other is SO4 2-. So we have letters to represent our atoms, right? What elements are in each of these atoms. So for example, we've got hydrogen, we've got oxygen, we've got sulfur. Now the number in front of the whole thing will tell you the amount of molecules you have. So in this case, I have two H2O molecules. So I have two of each of these groups, okay? Underneath both of these, we have a 2 and a 4. These are called the subscripts. Now subscripts tell you in each molecule how many are in that element, okay? So for example, right here, we have a 2, so we have 2 hydrogens. Here we have a 4, so we have 4 oxygens, all right? Now, the next thing is we have our superscript. Now our superscript goes on the top. It tells us the oxidation number, right? The oxidation number tells you how many electrons that the compound can lose or gain. Now, if there isn't a number in those spots, if there's no number in the coefficient and there's no number in the subscript, there's no oxidation number on the top, that means that you have 1 oxygen, you have 1 molecule, and then up here you have a neutral charge, okay? So anything that doesn't change, so again, like a 1 or a neutral, we just assume it's there, it's implied, we don't have to write it down. Now, with these chemical bonds, right, why do elements want to bond in the first place? Why do they want to bond in the first place? And the reason for that is chemical bonds form to neutralize the elements. If you can recall from last year, right, each element has an oxidation number. For example, oxygen has an oxidation number of -2, means it has 2 extra electrons that it wants to get rid of. Now, in order to get rid of them, you have to make a bond. And there's 2 different ways to do that. You can either have an ionic bond, or you can have a covalent bond. Now, the one thing they share in common is that they are used to neutralize element charge, right? That is what they're intended for. And that's about the only thing they have in common. After this, if we look at ionic bonds is when one element gives electrons to another, right? So it gives electrons away. Covalent is when elements share electrons. Big difference, right? One, they give them all away. One, they share them. Ionic bonds can only happen between metals and non-metals. Whereas covalent bonds happen between 2 non-metals. Okay, so again, a chemical bond is intended to neutralize the ions. They want full valence shells, so they can either do one of 2 things. They can either give them away, or they can share them. These are the 2 different ways that